It's Thursday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope everybody's having a great day out there today. Stay warm, stay dry, stay all that stuff. So let's get some snow this weekend. It's been a very not snowy winter here in Minnesota, but maybe some snow coming this weekend if that sort of thing entices you or frightens you. Either way, it's coming probably in a couple days. We're not here to talk about snow, though. We're here to talk about sports. Plenty of that to come. Velle E. Neal III joins me here in just a minute for our Daily Delivery debate section. In focus, NFL stuff, some Vikings questions, and returning to the scene of the crime, the Luka Doncic trade, Anthony Davis trade, however you want to frame it. Was it as lopsided as we might have thought? We'll get to that here in just a little bit. Another Twins free agent signing. We'll get to that at the end of the show, in addition to some Vikings news that is of interest to a lot of you, I would think, and their coaching staff. First, though, what did I miss? Got a lot of NBA Wolves stuff to tie together right now. Start with the game. Wolves beat the Bulls last night. A weird game. The Wolves jump out to a huge lead. Looks like it's going to be the runaway, the route that maybe they wanted it to be. Instead, the Bulls come roaring back, take a lead. They outscored the Wolves something like by 26 points, kind of from like the middle of the first to the middle end of the second quarter. But then the Wolves come back, take a 2-point halftime lead, and then make it the game everybody hoped and thought it would be if you are on the Wolves side. End up winning by 19. So, important win. Not not a surprising win necessarily. The Bulls just traded away Zach LaVine. They, kind of don't have their full complement of players right now. None of their new guys really in full operation yet. So it was an expected win, but a necessary one after a couple of 2-point home losses in each of their last 2 games. Now it is a back-to-back though. So I have to mention that right off the jump. They have a home back-to-back. They play Houston tonight. Houston, a very good team this year. A surprisingly very good team, a young team. And then Portland after that on Saturday. So you might have liked to see them be able to conserve a little bit more energy than they were able to conserve in this game. And it was a little bit, I don't know, maybe I'm making too much of this, but as Anthony Edwards stayed in the game, vainly trying to get to 50 points, and he had a lot of opportunities to get there. He got to 48, and then he missed 3 close-range shots, missed 1 free throw out of 2, and there's 3 minutes left. Wolves are up by 20. I'm like, get Anthony Edwards out of this game. He doesn't need to be expending any more energy than he is right now. Don't get him injured. Don't get him tired for the Rockets game, especially after we just watched him on Monday. He looked gassed. He had been sick earlier in the week. He was gassed. He'd missed that game against the Wizards. Why is he playing extra minutes? I know he wants to get to 50. He didn't get there anyway. He got to 49, but they didn't even take him out until there was a minute left in the game. So that bothered me a little bit. The pursuit of not just an individual goal, but kind of a meaningless marker. I know you want to get to 50. I know that's a big deal for NBA players. But in the big picture, it is utterly meaningless, and we will see if that comes back to bite them tonight against Houston. But a small quibble, bigger quibble was the defense during that kind of lapse during the second quarter, late first quarter. But they were able to overcome it. The Bulls looked entirely disinterested in playing defense. The Wolves were pretty good on offense, putting up 127 points. Ant was terrific. Like I said, he had 49, even if it was vainly attempting to get to 50. Naz Reid, 22. He was good. Mike Conley Jr., not a great offensive game, but I thought he was good in all facets of the game, aside from shooting. The bench guys were fine. Jalen Clark continues to be a good rotation piece, and that is interesting to me as the trade deadline arrives today. If the Wolves are going to do anything, it probably involves maybe one of their excess wings for a big, maybe. I don't exactly know what they'd be in the market for, another point guard. I don't quite know what to make of what they would do to upgrade themselves, and maybe that's part of the problem and part of the bigger picture of where they stand right now. In the last, 2 days, 3 teams at least in the West have gotten at least either better or more interesting. Three teams that they are directly competing with right now in the playoff race. The Lakers, of course, acquired Luka Doncic in that trade we already mentioned. We've already talked about this week, and Velle E, Neal III and I will talk about more here in just a minute. But then on Wednesday night, they acquired center Mark Williams from the Charlotte Hornets, 7'2", in his third year, so a guy who's still under team control for another year next season, and then options after that, restricted free agency, things like that. 7'2". He's had a hard time staying healthy. That's the biggest knock on him, but he is a monster when he is healthy, and he's been healthy lately. If he gives them any sort of reasonable, inside presence, which he should if he's healthy, they become that much more dangerous with Luka, with Austin Reeves, of course, with LeBron James. Like, their starting five could be pretty dangerous. They've already started to kind of hit some gears that they weren't hitting early in the year. They've pulled further ahead of kind of some of the rest of that pack in the West. So the Lakers look armed and dangerous right now in the short term. Yeah, they had to give up that last unprotected 2031 pick in this deal to get it done, but they are set up for the next couple years now to be awfully good. The Warriors got Jimmy Butler. Sounds like he waived he's declining his option for next year, signing a 2-year, $121 million extension. Like, you just stick with me for a minute. $121 million. Jimmy's 35 now. What a coup for Jimmy. Maybe his tone changed about going to Golden State, I presume, once he found out that was on the table, once he found out that was possible. The Warriors had been pursuing Kevin Durant, but Durant said he didn't want to go there. No desire to go, kind of have a reunion out there. But now all of a sudden the Warriors, you pair up Steph Curry with Jimmy Butler, still got Draymond Green. Again, veterans, don't know exactly how they will mesh, but man, you put Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry together, I think they got instantly better because Jimmy still brings it when he is on the court. For as long as he is happy. I think Golden State got better in this trade, and now they are going to be a problem. I think they're at 500 right now. They lost the other night, but they're at 500 right now, just a couple games behind where the Wolves are. They became at least more interesting, if not better. The San Antonio Spurs, who may be a year away, but are going to charge hard now. De'Aaron Fox made his debut for the Spurs last night. He was huge. You can see the potential for San Antonio. You can see where they are headed. They got their 22nd win. So yeah, they're not like an immediate threat to the Wolves in their, kind of playoff standing right now, but they are going to be a team that's going to be a factor, at least trying to get to the play-in. They might occupy a top 10 spot that before this trade they weren't going to occupy. So the Wolves just saw 3 teams at least get better than them or more interesting than them. Well, the jury is out on what the Anthony Davis acquisition for Luka Doncic means for the Mavericks, but we will see. It might be good for them in the short term, too. You could count 4 teams that have gotten significantly better or at least more interesting that the Wolves are battling against. And the Wolves, sitting there right now, kind of in neutral, kind of suspended in midair for a couple of reasons. One, their tradable assets are kind of small because of previous moves they've made, and because if you were thinking about a mid-year Julius Randle trade, he's injured right now. They announced, they gave an update on his injury, that groin strain. He's going to be out for at least 2 more weeks, reevaluated in 2 more weeks. So any team that's interested in that's got to keep that into their thinking. DiVincenzo is injured. I don't think he would be a candidate to be moved given his contract, given how well he's been playing. But again, their injuries are limiting where they are. Their situation with draft picks, with their second apron, things like that, are limiting how they can construct salaries, things like that. And then there's this whole ownership thing hanging over them. Our Jeff Day from the Star Tribune reporting, you can read that today. We had heard this, and I know, and now this has been kind of reported out a little bit more. A ruling on the arbitration as to who will own the Timberwolves is expected either tomorrow or Monday. Monday is the deadline. Will it continue to be Glenn Taylor, who also owns the Star Tribune, or will it be Mark Laurie and Alex Rodriguez, the group that is trying to buy the Timberwolves? And of course, the dispute arising, almost this time last year, last March, over a missed payment and whether they had the right to still make that payment or not. until that's resolved, not like that should hang up a minor trade, but it feels like one other thing that is just kind of holding this franchise into kind of a holding pattern. I don't know if it influenced any personnel moves they have made previously. I don't know if there's directives being issued right now. Glenn Taylor still owns the team, so however that shakes out, right now he is still the owner until this arbitration ruling happens, and could very well still be the owner after that. So they have to take that into consideration with all the moves they're making, instead of there being this clean understanding of who the ownership was going into this season. A lot of things just kind of hanging in midair for the Wolves. Again, by early next week, we'll have a resolution. Will they have made a deal at the deadline? Who knows? Will they? Who will be the owner? We don't know yet. This could all be resolved as soon as tomorrow. I mean, the trade deadline's today, could get a ruling on arbitration tomorrow. So a lot of these things will clear themselves up, but they will not clear themselves up in time for any sort of movement this season, probably. So interesting kind of swirl for the Wolves. Other teams getting better, other teams getting more interesting, them kind of like sitting in place, trying to get better internally. It's not a bad way to go. Sometimes like internal tumult is not the driver of success, but it does feel like other teams around them have more momentum than the Wolves maybe do right now, even though the Wolves did win on Wednesday night. I'm very happy to be joined today by Star Tribune columnist Velle E. Neal III. Velle, how are you?
I'm doing swell. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here too. And I got some feedback last week from a listener, Velle, who said our weekly daily delivery debate needs more contentiousness. We need to argue a little bit more. We need to debate a little bit more. We agree a little too much. I'm just saying, I'm not going to create artificial debate. If we agree, we agree. We settle on 3 topics every week, but I did take his advice, so we'll see how feisty we are today.
Who is this? Your son?
No, it was a listener. It's a listener. One of the thousands of daily delivery listeners. One of them took the time to email me about our segment and said, "You know what? I listened to today's segment. You guys kind of disagreed about this one thing. You mostly just talked about this other thing. You need to disagree more if you're going to call it a debate. Otherwise, it's just a discussion." So I was like, okay, that's fair. I think his name was Don. That's fair. So anyway, with that in mind, I'm not going to. Like I said, we're not going to create some.
Argue if Don is right or not.
Debate topic number 1. Yeah. Do we debate enough for Don? Is Don right or wrong? That'd be funny. We'd have to take diametrically opposing sides, or if we didn't, then he'd be wrong. That would be a very twisted loop. It'd be like right. Like into the metaverse. But let's try this today. Topic number 1. Nobody has taken the time to decide not to weigh in on the Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis trade that went down on Saturday night. Everybody's got an opinion about it. What I want to say, or what I want to ask you and talk about and debate and discuss, one of those two, is it really as lopsided or bad for Dallas as the kind of loudest narrative would have us believe?
Well, I mean, you got to look at it from Dallas' standpoint. They're still in win now mode, and Anthony Davis still gives them a chance to win now. Even though he's 32, he can pair with Kyrie or Irving. It's more of a veteran team, more of a post presence, more of a defensive presence, rebounding presence. So, I mean, it doesn't detract from the team that much. It's just that when you trade someone who's 25, 26 years old, who's one of the best scorers in the league, who is a triple-double threat, you expect to see like multiple number 1 draft picks as part of the package. This is the Wolves' fault. The Wolves did this because they sent 4 picks to Utah for Rudy Gobert. So everybody's thinking that whenever you have a trade for a young superstar, that you have to have a boatload of picks in return. I will point out that Max Christie came along in the trade, so it's kind of like getting a number 1 pick and a guy with a little bit of experience. I think Dallas probably could have gotten more for Luka if they shopped him around. It's pretty obvious that they were sick of his crap and wanted to get rid of him, and so they were motivated sellers. If you're a buyer, you want to take advantage of a motivated seller. that was what Dallas was at this moment. So, it looks bad. I think they could have gotten more for Luka, but given their situation, given that they were motivated to move him, they got what they could.
Here's what I think. I don't necessarily disagree with that assessment. Two things, though, that bother me. One, I think that draft picks aren't as valuable as they used to be because the college game, the internet, whatever the amateur game used to be isn't what it once was. Yeah, draft picks are nice if you're picking in the top 5, but if you're trading Luka to somebody, you're probably not going to be getting top 5 picks down the road because Luka's going to make your team good enough that you're not going to be a perennial lottery team. So whoever they're going to trade them to, I actually like the outcome of getting a really good player. Dallas didn't want to go into rebuild mode. They weren't looking for draft picks. They were looking for, like you said, the win now kind of player. But what especially bothers me is that we get swept up in the narrative. We get the instant judgment, and it happens quick on social media. It happens quick on, talk radio, podcasts, ESPN, all the talking heads. And there's a consensus that gets reached quickly. And if you don't go along with the consensus, you are somehow crazy. You aren't allowed to have a contrarian opinion. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily have a massive contrarian opinion on this trade, but I do think we stop evaluating it on its face and then just go along with it and say, what was Dallas thinking? They were idiots, instead of actually looking at it and saying, okay, here is actually what they were trying to accomplish. So I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be, even if I do agree that it's a curious deal from some standpoints.
I think they could have done better. I hear what you're saying about draft picks, but you always want to swing at the piñata because if a Damian Lillard may fall out of it, and plus it's hard. It's hard to. It's not easy to I still think rank and evaluate the international class every year. And you have a chance of landing an international stud, maybe 10, 11, 12 pick. I just think if the Mavericks could have played out this season, dealt with looking the best they could have, and looked to move them during the offseason when they could have built a group of suitors where they could have maximized the return. They did not maximize the return, but we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, that's true. They probably could have gotten more at some point. They must have really liked Anthony Davis and looked at it and said, I
didn't realize he was 32.
He's 30. He's about to be 32. But yes, I think he's not young anymore. And you do have to worry about, guy about to enter his peak versus guy who is maybe just at the end of his peak. You want to get the best player, and if you're not going to get the best player, you want to get the upside. And they probably didn't get either one of those things, but they probably got a window that's open for 3 years here right now, I think, with him and Kyrie and some of the other pieces they have.
It will be a little more palatable if Christie becomes a player too, which he has a chance to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll see. The biggest thing that bothers me is that the narrative, we get carried away in the narrative and we stop evaluating the actual thing. And that was the point I wanted to make. Number 2, Lavelle, Super Bowl is coming up on Sunday. You might have heard Roger Goodell got asked about this earlier in the week. People who are anti-Kansas City talk about this all the time. Do the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes really get the benefit of the calls and the refereeing? How have you seen this play out in the NFL? Do you believe in the conspiracy?
I have 2 things on that. First of all, these anti-Kansas City people need to just stop the madness. Stop hating. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Respect greatness. And that's what the Kansas City Chiefs are. They are greatness. Going for 3 straight Super Bowl wins, the first time ever in the Super Bowl era. I don't care what the Packers have done. That first championship was not during the Super Bowl era. So you can't tell me you won 3 straight in the Super Bowl era. But I will say this. Do I think that Mahomes gets calls? Yes, I do. I think because he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. People are going to be officials are going to be a little more nervous about players rushing at him and getting a hand in his face and making contact with his head and hit him in the helmet with his happen. And he's probably gotten the benefit of the doubt a couple of times. Do I think it's at an epidemic level, which people are claiming? I don't think, absolutely not. I think part of it is just because The Chiefs are on top, and people always don't like the dynasty, don't like the big dog on the porch. To the whole Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing. People think that Travis Kelce's overexposed. State Farm commercials with his buddy Mahomes. Heidi commercials with his buddy Mahomes. His brother dragging himself on his coattails, getting his own commercial deals, and plus all the Swifties there. I think that has aggravated the fan base. So I think they're overstimulated with Chiefsness. And that leads to the hatred and the jealousy and the rooting against Kansas City.
I'll go with that. Also, Jason Kelce, like you said, his brother, he has not turned down a commercial since he retired. He's in everything. And some of it's just like, what? Why is Jason Kelce in this commercial? There's data, there's been studies that say the Chiefs actually don't get the benefit of the calls, that they've been penalized more than their opponents since they won their first Super Bowl, that they've actually had more pass interference calls go against them than go against their opponents. I think it gets magnified because they play in so many big games. And then again, it's this problem of the narrative. As soon as the narrative is out there, we're looking for it. We're looking for every time Mahomes gets hit and it's a questionable roughing the passer call. And I do think in general, there is a star system that happens in the NFL and other leagues where the best players get some of those calls. They get protected, right? Like star NBA players get the whistle. Michael Jordan got the whistle. Kobe got the whistle. LeBron gets the whistle. Yeah. So they're protecting Mahomes to a certain degree, whether that's because he's great, whether it's because he's involved in a lot of big moments. I'm not sure, but I think the problem is that someone has decided this. Again, it's this going back to the narrative idea, and that now everybody's looking forward and is hyper aware when a call goes Kansas City's way, and they probably don't even notice the calls that go against them. It's like Vikings fans. Vikings fans have not noticed a call that went their way in 50 years. I don't think they've noticed a single call that went their way in 50 years, even though this season the Vikings benefited from officiating probably more than any other team in the league in any other season that I can remember in Vikings history. So I think it's human nature to, like you said, root against the team that is on top, but I don't think the refs are favoring Kansas City.
I think it needs to be a little more celebrated too if they were in a larger market as well. There's some jealousy there because it's little town Kansas City, Cowtown, as it used to be called. So I worked there for 9 years, so I know what the perception is.
You think they're going to three-peat? This is not part of the debate.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think when it's winning time, they're going to make the plays. And Andy Reid with extra week to prepare for the opponent is the most dangerous coach in football.
Yeah, I think the biggest concerning stat I saw if you're Philadelphia is that Jalen Hurts, when he is pressured, is not a great quarterback. And Steve Spagnuolo with an extra week to prepare for Jalen Hurts to kind of scheme against him and game plan against him. If they can't throw the ball, Saquon Barkley is terrific, but if they can't throw the ball in obvious passing situations when the pressure's coming and they go 3 and out or turn the ball over, that's going to spell a real problem for them in the Super Bowl. So I think you're right. I like Kansas City again, even though their defense is probably better than their offense these days, as great as Mahomes is overall. Last question. We're finally going to get to something local, Lavelle. What is the % chance, in your estimation, that Sam Darnold is the Vikings' Week 1 quarterback in 2025?
I'm going to say about 25 to 30%. I think that's either going to be Daniel Jones or it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. I think they'll move on from Sam Darnold. And if I'm his agent, I'm trying to get Darnold a 3-year deal. I'm trying to get him a Baker Mayfield contract. I'm trying to get him that 3-year contract worth $100 million somewhere with one of the desperate teams that needs a quarterback, i.e. the Raiders. So I think with Daniel Jones being in the fold for the last few weeks of the regular season, he has an idea of O'Connell's system. He could just step right in and take the Darnold contract from this year and move forward. And I'm sure there's going to be a movement to get the J.J. McCarthy clock running at full steam here instead of him burning a second year of his rookie contract sitting on the sideline. So I would say Darnold's probably playing elsewhere. I think it's dangerous for the Chiefs to franchise him at this point because then that's $40 million. And I think he'll be more than happy to accept that for a year. So, I mean, the theory there would be to franchise him and try to trade him for assets, but I don't know if that $40 million is a tradable contract. So I I just expect Darnold to move on via free agency and sign elsewhere.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what you're saying, although I put it more at like 5 to 10%. I just don't think he's going to be there. I think he's going to I think they'll get some intel here, maybe at the Super Bowl or at least at the Combine, and find out what his market is. I think the only way Darnold is back here playing in 2025 is if, for some reason, for whatever reason, the market for him, even though he's clearly the best free agent quarterback out there right now, is coming off the best 2024 season, clearly, of any quarterback hitting free agency. The only way he's back here is if it's on a 1 year, he didn't get the contract he wanted kind of deal, and it would have to be a lot less than the franchise. It'd be like $25 million kind of deal, and I think he's going to get way more than that. Now, I do think there is still a possibility that they see what the market is for him, that multiple teams are going to be interested in him, and they do franchise him, because they can trade him to a team and then they can rip up the franchise tag. He doesn't have to play on that tag. They can renegotiate that contract after he's traded to a multi-year deal that maybe he's looking for, that kind of 3-year, $110 million kind of contract. So I still think that's possible. That would be a risk, though. They would have to be pretty secure in knowing that, hey, if we franchise him, we 100% know that we can trade him, because you do not want to have 1 year for $41 million of Sam Darnold that just messes with your whole plan. But I think their whole plan is moving on to McCarthy. That was the plan at the start of 2024, have this bridge year. Sam Darnold gave him the best bridge year you could possibly want, but they are not interested in that long term.
No, I agree with that. Also, the Vikings are probably going to have to reshape their entire secondary.
Yes.
Just because of people are leaving, and I don't know if Byron Murphy's coming back next year. They also want to address the interior of their offensive line. And there's a guard for the Chiefs who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl, who's going to be a free agent, who is probably going to be chased by the Vikings as well as the Chicago Bears. So there's money that needs to be allocated elsewhere, and it would serve them better if it's Jones or McCarthy under center at the start of next season.
Oh, yeah, they got tons of holes, Lavelle. I mean, you got to fix the secondary. Almost everybody except Metellus is a free agent. You had Kevin O'Connell after the playoff loss saying we need to get better in the interior of the offensive line, so we know that's a priority. I think they could use another interior defensive lineman, although when I talked to Andrew Kramer earlier this week, he seems to think that's something they could patch together more than try to go out and sign somebody really impressive. They need a running back. They don't have a lot of draft picks as we've talked about. So even though they have a lot of cap space, I just don't see any way that they're going to devote a lot of it to quarterback this year. That's not been the plan. They've been clearing the decks for a while.
I agree.
Okay. Well, Lavelle, how did we do? Did we debate more? Did we disagree a little bit more than we have in the past? Did we make Don happy?
I don't know if we make Don fully happy. I think we made him slightly happy. Or I think there was a little bit of difference about the extremes of the trade, and Darnold's chances of returning as a Viking. But
okay.
I don't know. Every show cannot be pardon interruption.
No,
or whatever you want to call it.
That's true. That is true. Well, I think we found a nice middle ground today. Appreciate it, Lavelle, as always, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Look forward to it.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Good stuff from Lavelle, as always, and a postscript to our Sam Darnold conversation. Grant Udinsky, Vikings assistant quarterbacks coach, working alongside Josh McCown in that capacity in 2024, while Sam Darnold had easily the best year of his career with the Vikings, sparking the question that Lavelle E. Neal III and I just tackled. He is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars as their offensive coordinator. That's a big deal. I think the Vikings still have plenty of brain power, plenty of offensive-minded personnel with McCown, with Wes Phillips, of course, with Kevin O'Connell. Plenty of offensive brains still in the room, but when somebody leaves, you do have to wonder how that will impact the Vikings, short-term and long-term, because this is a guy they had a lot of faith in. This is a guy who is still very young, an up-and-comer. I believe he is 29 right now. He's a big deal. This is a big deal for the Vikings, potentially a big deal. Not like something they can't overcome, but something that it looked like they might be getting through this offseason hiring cycle without losing anybody, without losing any staff from a 14-3 team. But instead now, kind of late in the cycle, we find out they're losing Grant Udinski to Jacksonville, and we'll see what the impact of that ends up being. Final thing for the cooler, the Twins can't stop signing free agents now after not signing anybody. Harrison Bader, outfielder, most of his career spent with the Cardinals. A couple years now he's been in New York, a little bit of time with the Yankees, and then with the Mets. Kind of seems like the Mets maybe overpaid for him last year. He was a $10.5 million guy, didn't really live up to that contract necessarily, but not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, a Gold Glover a few years back. He is coming to the Twins, kind of that fourth outfielder role. Michael A. Taylor very successfully filled that in 2023. Manny Margot very unsuccessfully filled that last year. They're probably hoping for more Michael A. Taylor, less Manny Margot with this move. You need that guy. You need that fourth right-handed hitting outfielder, kind of the Byron Buxton replacement when he inevitably needs a day to DH, when he might land on the injured list, as he has many times in his career. You want a guy who you can plop into center field on those days, give you credible defense, maybe above average, certainly defense if you're talking about a former Gold Glove winner, and a guy who can steal a base, hit a home run occasionally, and things like that. So he seems like a Michael A. Taylor type. If they got a Michael A. Taylor-like season out of him this season, like they got in 2023 from Taylor, I'm sure they would be thrilled. We will see. Terms, I think it was like a little over $6 million, so not breaking the bank, but between him and Danny Coulombe the other day that they signed, that's $10 million roughly that they've committed to payroll in 2025 that weren't on the books before. We will see if there's a corresponding move to come, if they're going to shed some salary in a trade. Chris Paddock still a candidate for that. He's going to make $7.5 million this season if they can maybe trade him for a prospect, shed a bunch of payroll there if they think better of the rest of their pitching staff, things like that. So we'll see where payroll winds up ultimately, but we can no longer say the Twins haven't done anything. They've made 2 medium to small leverage moves, but indeed they are moves, and we must put them in the they did something category at the very least. That will do it for me today. Plenty to talk about on Friday's show. John Marthaler will join me to talk Minnesota United soccer. Yes, that season is not too far away, even if it seems like it maybe just ended. Probably talk Gophers women's basketball versus Iowa. Big game for the Gophers tonight. Kind of bubble teams, 2 bubble teams. Iowa coming to Williams Arena should be a good one, and we will talk about that on tomorrow's show as well. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow.